Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
are.
Yes, sir. Good
Okay.
morning.
Yeah. Good morning to all of you. At the outset, let me congratulate all of you for having joined this course in life science, a refresher course in life science. Uh, we have with us the course coordinator, Dr. Ms. Priti Dharmik, who is going to lead all of you during this refresher course for next 2 weeks. Friends, as all of you are aware that we are passing through an unprecedented situation due to COVID-19 pandemic. Uh, every uh, I mean, across the globe, you find that this pandemic has impacted the normal life of the people. Our education sector is not exception to this impact as such. Because of this COVID-19, University Grants Commission has mandated us, all the HRDCs across the country for that matter, to conduct the courses in online mode. And that's the reason that we are meeting here today uh, in the inaugural program of this refresher course in online mode. By now, all of you are uh, fully acquainted with what is the online mode, how are the live sessions going to happen in online mode, how are the sessions conducted in offline mode. So all that, all those new normals now have been there as a part of conduct of various programs, various courses, various meetings nowadays. Friends, uh, as you know that we are into this online mode, and online mode is basically the way we are going to meet. In online mode, we employ the information communication technology for conduct of the courses. Online mode basically has its merits and demerits, and we just cannot have a comparison of face-to-face teaching or face-to-face conduct of the courses uh, as against that of online mode. Face-to-face has its own advantages, as you are aware that in face-to-face, physically you are in front of the resource persons. Resource persons have access to your body language. Uh, there is a eye contact happening in face-to-face conduct of the courses, which is in fact missing in online mode as such. However, online mode has its own advantages. Like you can have so many renowned resource persons who are staying at a very long distances from our place. We can invite them, maybe a person from Chennai, maybe a person from Guwahati, maybe a person from Delhi, who physically cannot come to address the participants in face-to-face conduct of the program. However, now it has become possible for Dr. Preeti Dharmik madam to invite such resource persons who are staying at long distances from our place, and to address the participants, just to have their knowledge sharing with our participants is going to be a great advantage because of this online mode. Friends, there is no substitute because of this situation to the online conduct of online mode classes as such. Even at your respective colleges, departments, universities, you might have come across conduct of the online courses as such. So along with your subject knowledge, which is RC in life science, refresher course in life science, how to conduct the online classes also is going to happen during this refresher course, and participants will definitely be benefited. How to conduct online course, what are the norms for conduct of the online course, what are other things which you can do along with live sessions in online mode. Like you may have a WhatsApp group in parallel with your live sessions. You may have recording of the live sessions and then put those recordings there at different platforms, like probably Priti madam is using uh,
Model.
Moodle LMS, wherein on Moodle you will find that all the recorded sessions are made available. If someone has missed some of the sessions there because of some technical snag or technical difficulties, those are made available there on Moodle platform. So that is a way of offline learning. You may go through those video lectures there and have a subject knowledge or acquire the subject knowledge as you feel so. Friends, one thing one must remember that in online mode, it is quite possible that at times uh, the technology becomes a bottleneck for conduct of the online courses. Like you may be at some places wherein there is no proper network, there is no proper speed, the voice quality probably because of certain devices is not good. So you may come across all these kind of difficulties. At times there may be failure at, I mean, power failure at your place, because of which you may get disconnected with live sessions. So all these, I mean, taken together, all these difficulties, I think uh, that those difficulties basically should not become the hurdles for conduct of the online, because in this situation we do not have any other way to conduct the courses other than this kind of mode, uh, because face to face, having face to face courses in this situation is going to be impossible. For that matter, I mean, there are no guidelines also, because you have to have a kind of social distancing, avoid the travel, and there are other difficulties as well. So it is not possible now, and you never know that for how long this situation will continue. So you cannot wait infinitely for conduct of the courses as such, and that's the reason that very wisely University Grants Commission has given mandate to conduct the online courses, so that this teaching learning process as such should continue. And it has, I mean, this basically pandemic has given a great learning, great lesson to all of us about this online training as such. It has taught us how to go in for online, how to come over this kind of difficulty, these kind of situations, and continue our teaching learning process, because teaching learning is not going to stop. And as we all see to it that this is a process which continues till the end of our life. So no situation, no hurdle can stop it. And it has been again proved, because of the advent of this information communication technology, it is possible for all of us. But one has to understand the seriousness of this teaching learning process. Since it is online, we are not across each other. Some of the participants may not take it seriously. However, I would urge all of you to take it seriously and see to it that since this course is being conducted for your benefit basically, and you should gain or extract a lot of subject knowledge, a lot of other kind of learnings that are going to take place during this 2 weeks course. So friends, let us not miss even a single session, online session, I mean to say, and see to it that you are really all the time uh, with the session. At times, it is also observed that some of the participants are just joining the session and then they are roaming here and there. So that should not be the case, because ultimately it is you who are going to get benefited. It is for you basically. All the efforts are, I mean, Priti madam and other resource persons are exerting for you. So you should understand the philosophy and logic behind this. And the very purpose of this is to, listen to the resource persons who are going to enlighten us about the latest happenings, dynamic happenings, latest research in the subject wherein we are the part and partial of. So this is a great opportunity maybe in online board, but is going to be a great opportunity for all of you to listen to renowned resource persons and raise your queries. It's quite possible that you may participate in live sessions in online mode and get your queries resolved. Unless until initiative comes from your side, indeed you cannot have the same advantage as that of face to face in online mode. So friends, take it very seriously and see that this is a great opportunity for all of you. UGC has given through HRDCs, and we as a HRDC RTM Nagpur University Nagpur take or own this responsibility to give you whatever possible the best in best possible way to you. Hope that you will really gain lot of knowledge during next 2 weeks about your subject, about other sessions which will be conducted. And since Priti Madam is from the same field, she must have designed this course uh, for the largest benefit of her participants, and hope that you will all cooperate with her uh, call as such, and listen to her whatever the instructions she gives to you during this course time. In case of any difficulty, we are always there to help you out, and hope that you will indeed be gaining a lot of knowledge in this course. With these few words, I once again welcome all of you for joining this course, and congratulate you, and wish you all the best for this course, for attending this course. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your inaugural speech and briefing the refresher course in life science. Friends, now we will begin with our first session. We have with us respected Dr. Nitin Dongarwar, sir. Sir, good morning. Am I audible, sir? Hello.
हॅलो हां मॅडम गुड
Sir,
मॉर्निंग
आवाज येतोय?
एकदम क्लिअर आहे.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, friends, we will begin with our first session. Friends, Dr. Nitin Dongarwar sir is currently working as Associate Professor at Department of Botany, RTM Nagpur University. He has done his MSc in 1993 and PhD in 1998 from the same university. He has passed both NET and SET examinations in 1995. He has total teaching experience of 23 years and research experience of 20 years. His field of interest is taxonomy, ethnobotany, conservation. Till date, he has completed 4 research projects, and he has guided 8 PhD students and 5 MPhil students for their research work. And he has published 51 research papers in national and international journals till date. So, with this brief introduction, I request you, sir, to please enlighten the participants on the topic private life of plants. And, sir, I request you to kindly share your screen.
येस मॅडम.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
ओके. Shall I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, friends.
Friends,
Welcome
sir
to
का आवाज आ रहा है आपको?
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Yes.
Good morning, friends.
Morning,
Good
sir.
morning, colleagues. The topic of my talk is private life of plants.
सर थोडं लाऊड पीच हवी आहे.
ओके, एक मिनिट मी
थोड़ी
आवाज मोठा
धीरे
करतो.
आ रही है आवाज.
हा हा हा.
आता येतोय बरोबर?
हा सर थोडासा स्पीकर जवळ हवा आहे.
ओके. हाँ. Now the topic is private life of plants. Everyone has got his private life, and the plants also have got private life. We all know that the plants have originated long back ago, and after the emergence of flowering plants, especially what we usually called as the angiosperms, now the flowers have probably evolved as a part for sexual reproduction. Flower is a organ which is meant for sexual reproduction, and we usually say in botany that flower is a modified shoot which is meant for reproduction. So one thing is there that the plants, they are stationary. They cannot move from one place to another place, and that's why they are dependent on external agency to transfer their gametes. And they require so many types of agency. These agencies can be biotic, these agencies can be abiotic. And depending upon the agencies which are required by the plants have modified themselves, they have adopted themselves, they have made certain changes in themselves so that the pollination can take place in a proper way. Now, we can define pollination by several ways. Usually, the pollination is described or discussed in a biology book as a transfer of pollen from the anther to the receptive stigma. But in the world of plants, it is so colorful world is there. So mere transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the receptive stigma cannot describe what is called as private life of plants or pollination. So I usually say that it is the festival of life, where food is there, fragrance is there, beauty is there, everything is there. Now let us peep down into the private life of plants and see what these plants have made changes in themselves to facilitate the pollination, to attract the pollinators. Now let us see that this is a angiosperm flower. We all know that. I know that there are certain members who are not from botany, but I will see that I will simplify my lecture in such a way that none of you are getting bored. And I will not go into the complexities so that it will be a sort of popular lecture. It will not be a more technical lecture. We all know that the flower has got four whorls: calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. Out of which the sepal is green in color, petals are usually required for attraction. Then stamen is the male sex organ and carpel is the female sex organ. Now, in the plant world, it is said that there are 2,50,000 flowering plants, and majority of these plants, they have got different types of flowers, different colors of flowers. There can be smallest flowers, there can be largest flower. So the thing is that to fulfill the requirement of every type of pollinator, the plant has made certain changes in itself. So let us see what are these changes. There are some small flowers because they are the flowers of the smallest plant. There is a plant called as Golfia borealis, in which the smallest flower is recorded in the plant kingdom. The flower is so small that the whole plant can pass through the eye of the needle. Here you can see that this is the eye of the needle through which we usually insert the thread while sieving. So the four plants can be adjusted in the eye of the needle. So you can just imagine that how small the flowers can be. This is the scanning electron micrograph of a flower. Now, when there is a small flower, it means that there can be some largest flower also. In the plant kingdom, the largest flower belongs to the Rafflesia arnoldii. It usually grows in the tropical rainforest of Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia. Sumatra, Borneo, and Java are the areas where the largest flower is being grown. And this is one of the largest inflorescence. Inflorescence is nothing but it is the assemblage of flowers on the floral axis. So here you can see that this is the largest inflorescence in the plant kingdom. It belongs to a plant called as Puya raymondi. It grows in the Chilean desert. Now the question comes that which is the most beautiful flower? There are two types of flowers which can be considered as one of the most beautiful flowers because they are probably exploited in the floriculture industry. One flower is a tulip flower and another one is an orchid flower. Tulip flower is known for its simplicity and the orchid flower is known for its complexity. So we can say that both these flowers are one of the most beautiful flowers in the plant kingdom. Now, as I said that the plants are stationary. They cannot move from one place to another place. And that's why they require certain agency. The agency can be living agency, the agency can be non-living agency. But in order to facilitate the pollination, the plants have made certain changes in themselves. So for example, there are two types of pollination. There is one pollination called as self-pollination and there is another pollination that is called as cross-pollination. Now, when the flower is dependent on no other agency, so usually plants, they favor that the self-pollination can take place. It means that the transfer of pollen from the anther to the receptive stigma of the same plant or of the different flower but of the same plant. So this is considered as a self-pollination. And here you can see that what are the changes which are required? What are the adaptations which are required by the plants that they require very less quantity of pollen grain. Some of the flowers are that they never open. It means that the flowers are small, the flowers are closed, they are clistogamous, means there is no necessity of opening of flower. And these flowers may require very less quantity of pollen grain. So the thing is that they want to ensure that the seed set is there. Now, the question arises, what is the basic aim in the life of all living organisms? The basic aim in the life of all living organism is the propagation of its own species. So the plants also do the same thing, that they want to propagate their own species. And in order to favor for self-pollination, the plants should be the plant should have bisexual flowers, means that they should have both sex organs, that is male and female sex organs should be present, and these male and female sex organs should mature at the same time, so that the plant can favor for self-pollination. Now, cross-pollination means the transfer of pollen from the anther of one flower to the receptive stigma of the second flower, but on the different plant. And 70% of the plants, flowering plants, they are cross-pollinated by the pollinators. So 70% of the plants, they require external agency which can transfer their pollen grains. And the 30% plants are there which usually favor for self-pollination. Why do the plants favor for cross-pollination? And why do the plants favor for self-pollination? See, when the self-pollination is there, seed set is ensured. One can say that the seed set is confirmed. And there is no requirement of any external agency which can transfer the pollen grain. But in case of a cross-pollination, the agency is required. The agency can be living agency or the agency can be a non-living agency. So the plants are dependent on certain agencies which can transfer their pollen grains. So why these 70% of the flowering plants, they have favored for cross-pollination? Why they have favored for cross-pollination? The reason is that when the plant is going for selfing, generations after generations, if the self-pollination, self-fertilization takes place, then there is a loss of vigor, there is a loss of strength, and there is no genetic variability within the species. So in order to go for genetic variability, the cross-pollination is usually favored. When two different types of plants, they are crossed of the same species, so one set of plants may have one type of genes, other set of flowers may have got another type of seed. So there is a recombination of characters, and these recombination of characters can bring about the vigor in the plant, so that the strength can be there, so that the plant can sustain in the extreme conditions also. So what are the advantages, or what are the adaptations which are, what we can say, contrivances which are opted by the plants to favor cross-pollination? First one is unisexuality, means the flowers are unisexuals. Either male flower is there or female flower is there, which is born on the same plant. Say for example, in case of a castor plant, you can see here on the same plant, both the male and female flowers are present. In case of papaya, there are two separate plants. There is a male plant and there is a female plant. So why the plants have favored for unisexuality? Because if the flowers are unisexual, then there is no question of self-fertilization or self-pollination. Then the second thing is that is the length of the style. The styles are of two different lengths. so that self-pollination or self-fertilization is avoided by the plant. That is called as heterostyly. When the stamens and carpels, they mature at the two different times, that is called as dichogamy. And in case of a self-pollinated flowers, both the stamens and carpels, they mature at the same time, so that the self-fertilization or self-pollination may take place. So in the dichogamy, there are two conditions, protoandry and protogyny. Means androecium will mature first prior to gynoecium, and that is called as protoandry. The classical example is geranium, and in certain cases like magnolia, you will find that the cross pollination is there, and the carpel will mature first, and the later on the stamen will mature. So it is called as protogyny, which is usually found in the members of family Magnoliaceae, especially the magnolia is there. Here you can see here the carpels have matured first, but in this condition you can see that no stamens have matured. Now when the carpels have already pollinated, now these stamens have started opening and releasing the pollen grains. Now sometimes there is a physical barrier which prevents the pollen reaching the stigma of the same species, which is usually seen in certain plants like Calotropis procera, which we commonly called as dudhi or ak or mandar in our area. It is a common plant in our area, in which you can see that there is a physical barrier. There is a physical barrier which usually prevents self-fertilization. Now, when the agencies are different, there are two types of agencies. First one is a biotic agency or non-living agency, and second one is a biotic agency or the living agency. Now, two non-living agencies are there, wind and water. Now, the flowers which are pollinated by wind are called as anemophilous flowers, and the flowers which are pollinated by water, they are called as hydrophilous flower. And the type of pollination is called as anemophily in case of a wind and hydrophily in case of water. Again, in case of water, there are two conditions. One is called anhydrophily and second one is aphydrophily. Anhydrophily,
सर
हाँ मॅडम,
तुमच्या स्क्रीनवर ना बॉक्सेस दिसतात आहे. एकदा रिफ्रेश कराल का स्क्रीन?
हो.
किंवा स्लाइड शो एकदा बंद करून परत चालू करा सर.
चालेल मॅडम. मिनिमाइज करू की पूर्ण बंद करू?
स्लाइड शो ऑफ करून नॉर्मल पीपीटी चालू राहू द्या आणि मग परत स्लाइड शो करा.
ओके ओके. आता
आता ना राईट बॉटम कॉर्नरला आणि टॉप वरती एक बॉक्स दिसतो आहे.
माझ्याकडे तर दिसत नाहीये. माझ्याकडे
कारण की
दिसत नाही.
पार्टिसिपंट्सला पण दिसतो आय थिंक, आणि मला पण इथनं म्हणजे पीपीटी वरती ते येत आहे, त्याच्यामुळे इमेजेस वगैरे हाइड होतात आहे थोड्या.
यस मैम. यस मैम. कुछ सारे चीजें देखने को नहीं मिली.
आता
हा सर, तुम्ही आता जे बाजूला केलं ना त्याच्यामुळे मग आता थोडं क्लिअर आहे.
आता माझ्या स्क्रीनवर मॅडम एकही हे नाहीये.
ओके सर, या एजन्सीज फॉर पॉलिनेशन जे टायटल आहे त्याच्यावरती काही आहे का अजून?
नाही, काहीच नाहीये.
ओके सर, आता स्लाइड शो आहे हा.
हा हा.
ओके ठीक आहे सर, कंटिन्यू करा.
ओके. हा.
थँक्स.
There are two types of agencies, anhydrophily and aphydrophily. Anhydrophily means the pollination which is taking place below the surface of water. Now there are certain plants which are submerged plants, like Hydrilla, Ceratophyllum. These are the plants in which the plants which are submerged, and so here you will find that the before that we can see that anemophily or wind pollination. Now wind pollination flowers, the flowers which are pollinated by usually wind, they have to produce pollen grains in large quantity. Especially you can see here this is the inflorescence of a grass, and here the small powdery mass is there. Now this small powdery mass is nothing but it is the pollen grains which are released in grasses and other like wheat, rice, maize, other plants. You will find that they usually favor for wind agency, and here the pollen grains are to be produced in huge quantity, because whenever the agency is abiotic, the plant has to produce pollen grains in large quantity because they do not know that where the other plant will be located. So in order to ensure fertilization, they have to produce pollen grain in large quantity. Um, and large number of pollen grains are wasted also. These are the pollen grains which are wasted of a pine plant. So this is called as a pollen tide because the plant has to produce the pollen in millions. So many of the pollen grains, they do not reach to the plant and they fall down and they are wasted. But this is usually unavoidable things because the plant has to ensure that the fertilization takes place. What I said that in case of water pollination or hydrophyly, there are two conditions called as end hydrophyly and F hydrophyly. End hydrophyly usually takes place in those plants, the plants which are submerged, which are usually present below the surface of water. And they have got very small inconspicuous flowers. Why the flowers are small and inconspicuous? Because the agency which is doing the pollination is non-living. So the question of beautification, the question of fragrance, the question of color, the question of brightness does not arise here. So the flowers are so small, and the pollen grains, they are needle-like sometimes, so that they can penetrate very well through the stigma. So these are the flowers of some submerged plants like Hydrilla, Elodea, and then there is another type of hydrophyly which is called as ape hydrophyly, which is usually seen in a submerged plant, but the pollination usually takes place on the surface of water. That's why this condition is called as ape hydrophyly, and this is seen in a plant called as Vallisneria. Now, in our area, this plant is very common in the ponds. Now, what happens that the male flowers, when they are ready for pollination, the male flowers, they are detached from the plant and they come and float on the surface of waters. Here you can see that all the male flowers are floating on the surface of flower. Whereas the female flower is never released from the main plant, but it has got a long stalk, what we usually say pedicel. So this stalk has got a coiled structure, what we usually see in our old type of telephones, the wire is coiled. Uh, so here what happens, when the female flower is ready to receive the stigma, at that time it will come on and come on the surface of water. Here you can see that this is the female flower which has come on the surface of water, but the female flower is comparatively heavier than the male flowers. So as a result of it, it forms a sort of bulging, it forms a sort of groove on the water. So narrow depression is formed on the water. So whenever wind comes, and due to the wind, the water flows. And when this water flows, so these male flowers will be coming near to the female flowers. And when they come in the depression, suddenly the male flowers will fall down, will slide down, and they will touch to this receptive stigma. In this way, the transfer of pollen grain usually takes place. Now, there are certain plants which usually produce the flowers once in their lifetime. So such plants are called as monocarpic plants because they have to produce the inflorescence, and the weight of the inflorescence is so heavy that the plant cannot bear the weight every year. So these plants are called as monocarpic plants. They once flower in their lifetime. Even the bamboos are monocarpic. After the flowering, once the seed set is there in bamboo, the bamboo plant will die. So same is the condition in these plants also. This is Puya Raymondi, and these are the Furcarias, which are very common in our area. This is the photograph of Ambasari garden where Furcarias are in flowering. Even the agave plants are also monocarpic plants. Now, why these plants are monocarpic? Because the weight of the inflorescence is too heavy that the plant cannot sustain the weight of the inflorescence every year. So when the plants are ready to produce flowers, at that time they will produce the flowers, and these flowers may be pollinated by birds, insects, or any other. Here, these are the flowers of the Furcaria. Now I have shown you the diversity of the flowers. Now you can see here, there are different types of flowers, different shapes of flowers are there. Why the different types of flowers are there, different shapes of flowers are there? The reason is that the pollinators are different. Every pollinator has got its own choice. And as per the choice of the pollinator, as per the requirement of the pollinator, the flower will modify itself in such a way that it can attract, it can lure the pollinator in such a way that either the shape will be required, either the fragrance will be required, either the food will be required, either the appearance will be required, or either the color will be required by the pollinator. So different flowers they have developed in such a way that they are of the different shapes and different sizes, so then they can attract large number of pollinators which are present in the atmosphere. Now there are certain pollination syndromes, what we usually say. Now depending upon the pollinator, the shape of the flower will be there, the color of the flower will be there, then the timing of opening of the flower will be there, and the reward will also be there. Now these we usually called as floral pollination syndromes. Now we all know that different types of pollinators are there. The pollinators can be insects, the pollinators can be birds, the pollinators can be bats, the pollinator can be mammals, the pollinators can be even the slugs and snails, the pollinators can anybody. So the plant has to decide what type of pollinator it will try to attract. So, and what is its requirement? Which type of pollinator should be visiting there? So, once the plant decides that this is the type of pollinator which can do pollination or which can transfer the pollen grain, accordingly, there is changes in the shape of the flower. Accordingly, there is change in the requirement of the pollinator. So the plant will produce that much quantity of pollen grain, that much quantity of nectar, that much type of shape will be developed by the flower so that the pollinator can be attracted. Now there are different types of pollination types, what we usually say. When the pollination is being done by the insect, it is called as entomophily. When the pollination is done by bird, it is called as ornithophily. When the pollination is done by bat, it is called as chiropterophily. When the pollination is done by mammals, it is called as zoophily. But we know that the insects are the largest group of organisms. And there are subtypes also. Some Lepidoptera are there, Hymenoptera is there, so many classes are there. So accordingly, there are subtypes in entomophily or insect pollination. The pollination which is done by bees, it is called as melitophily. When the pollination is done by butterfly, it is called as psychophily. When the pollination is done by moth, it is called as phalanophily. When the pollination is done by fly, it is called as myophily. When the pollination is done by beetle, it is called as cantherophily. So there are different types of pollination within the entomophily. Subtypes are there. Now, what type of pollination syndromes are there? We can see one by one so that we can later on focus on that. See, bees. Now, it is once said that if you eliminate all the bees from the Earth planet, in the next 4 years, the whole human population will die. Because we all know that whatever food which we are eating, whatever fruits which we are eating, whatever vegetables which we are eating, whatever other things which we are eating, we are getting due to the pollination which is done by bees only. And in the Europe now, large number of researchers are being going on because they feel that there is decline in the population of honeybees. And some of the honeybees are declining in population. That's why they are now searching why there is decline in the population of honeybees. And that's why they have said that if all the honeybees will die in the next 4 years, the whole human race will also die for the want of food. So all the insects, they may not be useful to you, but they are useful for us also here. So the bees are, when they pollinate the flower, it is called as melitophily. And the flowers which are usually visited by the bees, they are blue in color, yellow in color, or purple in color. And they have got a fresh and strong fragrance. And the flowers open during the daytime because the bees are active during the daytime. And what is the reward? It can be nectar or it can be pollen, because pollen is it contains lipids and proteins, and nectar, it has got all types of sugars which are required by the honeybees also. Now butterflies, they often prefer bright colored flowers or red colored flowers. They visit the flowers which have got a fresh fragrance, but the fragrance is weak, and they are active during the daytime because the flowers will open during the daytime because the butterfly are active during the daytime, and they visit only for the sake of nectar. Whereas moth, they are active during the night time. So whichever flowers which are pollinated by the moths, they are opening during the night time. So they are usually pale in color, they are white in color, they have got sweet, strong smell, and the reward is nectar only. Now there are two type of fly pollination. In one case, the flies are getting reward. In the other case, the flies do not get the reward. And such type of pollination is called as carry-on type of pollination. So here usually the flies which are not rewarded, the flowers are usually brownish and purplish in color, and they probably emit a rotten strong fragrance, and they open during the daytime or nighttime whenever the flies are active, and the reward is none. In case of the flies which visit the light colored flowers, they get the reward in the form of nectar and the pollen. The birds usually visit the flowers which are red in color. And the most important thing is that the birds cannot sense smell. The birds cannot sense smell. So the flowers which are pollinated by the birds, they will never have any fragrance, because they know that the plants know that why should we produce fragrance? If we are producing fragrance, it means that we are wasting the energy. So they visit the flowers only for the sake of nectar. So the nectar is produced in larger quantity, and the birds do not sense smell. That's why the flowers which are pollinated by the birds, they are usually non-fragrant. The bats are active during the night time, so the flowers are usually white, and they get the nectar in the form of reward in the form of nectar or pollen. Okay, now this is the photograph of a same species. It is called as anemone. It is a member of family Ranunculacea. You can see here why different types of colors are there, why different shapes are there, why different type of modifications are there. These modifications are there because there is a competition in all the species, so that they can attract large number of pollinators towards them, so that the pollination can be done. Now, beside that, some plants, they also go for additional appendage. Development of additional appendage means what we can say, we usually wear jackets, hats, caps in order to increase our beauty. So or even sometimes we also wore the shawls and cardigans in order to enhance our beauty. In the same way, the plants also, they have developed the appendages, additional appendages. This is a daffodil flower. Here you can see that this is the appendage which is called as corona. Here, in case of Calotropis flower, this is the most beautiful part, that is also called as corona. It is called as staminal corona. It is called as corolline corona. This is a passion flower. Now here you can see the beauty of the passion flower is increased by these 100 corona members. So these are the additional appendages which usually increases the beauty of the flower. Now there are certain flowers which are very small, which are very inconspicuous. Say for the members of family Araceae, the flowers are very small. The flowers may be arranged in the male flowers will be here, female flowers will be there, and neuter flowers or sterile flowers will be there. But the more attractive thing is the spathaceous bract. That is attractiveness. Here again in daffodils you can see that this is the most important portion for the attraction. This is a plant in our area, Mussaenda. This is the small flower, but the attraction is sepaloid petal. This is the bract, which is more attractive in case of a bougainvillea because the flower is very small. This is euphorbia. Here you can see that the flowers are very small, but the additional appendages in the form of the bracts are there. They probably attract the insects. Here you can see that the spurs are there. In case of balsams, they are attractive. Now, every insect which will visit the flower should ensure that the flower has to ensure that where the insect should land. So they develop a sort of runway for them. So where the insects can land. Here you can see in case of iris, in case of rhinoblossom, in case of Martinia, this is Assistacea, this is Justicia, and this is Hygrophila. Everywhere you can find that the lower lip is there, the lower petal is there, which is somewhat more beautiful, so that the this is the landing platform for the insects. So once the insect lands, it can enter into the flower. And these are the different types of pollen grains which are there. See, here you can see that none of the pollen grains are smooth. Every pollen grain may have got some some appendages on it, some spiny things are there, or some rough surfaces are there, by the help of which they will adhere to the body of the insect. Now there are different types of flowers: polyphyllic flowers, mesophyllic flowers, and oligophyllic flowers. Now the flowers which are visited by large spectrum of pollinators, say for example, a flower which is visited by the large, say insects are visiting, birds are visiting, mammals are visiting the same flower, then it is called as a polyphyllic flower. A mesophilic flower is usually visited by only one group of insects. Say for example, only butterflies, all the different types of butterflies are visiting, so that is an oligophilic, mesophilic flower. But the oligophilic flowers which are visited by a narrow spectrum, only wasps are visiting or only the bees are visiting, these are there. Then there are pollinators also, the polytropic, oligotropic, and monotropic. So the pollinators, when they visit a wide range, they are called as polytropic. When they visit a narrow range, they are called as oligotropic. And when they visit a single flower, they are called as monotropic pollinators. Now here you can see that this is a polyphyllic flower where different types of bees are visible. Some flies are also visible. Some wasps are also visible. You can see here different types of insects are visiting the same flower. So this is a polyphyllic flower. And this is oligophyllic flower, which is usually visited by a single type of insect. Now, what are the attractions which are there for the insects? And these attraction can be several things which can probably attract the insects towards the flowers. Many of the times pollen, they contain proteins and lipids in it. So large number of insects, large number of pollinators, they come for the food. So the pollen are attraction. Sometimes the sweet nectar is there, some sweet syrup is there, sweet juice is there in the flower which is produced by nectaries. So nectars are a sort of attraction, and the position of the nectaries can decide which type of pollinator will visit it. Then eliophores and floral oils are there, because we usually apply deodorants and perfumes on our body whenever we go outside. And in the same way, the insects also, they apply fragrant oils all over their body especially during the mating season. Some of the insects, they go and visit the flowers and they rub their body on the flowers, so that the fragrance of that flower is probably received by that insect, and when it goes out for mating, so it can be attractive for him to attract the females. Then many of the flowers, insects, they visit the flowers for protection or a brooding place. Some times the flowers are sexual attraction, sometimes they are visual attraction, sometimes motion is also there. We can see one by one all these things. Now we know that bee pollinated flowers are there. More than 20,000 species of bees and wasps are there, which usually prefer the blue and yellow colored flower, but not usually the red colored flower. Now here you can see that this is a yellow colored flower which is seen by us, and this is the same flower which is seen by the bee, because the insects take the light from the ultraviolet range. They do not take the light from the visible range, so they take the light from the ultraviolet range. That's why you can see here the flower which is visible to us, the same flower is visible to the bee in this way. And here this is a member of family Asteraceae. Aster plant is there. It is visible to us in this way, but the insect can see that there are some small circles are there, which ensure that this is the position where the insect has to land. Since we are not the pollinators, we are not able to see this color. The insect can see this color because they are taking the light from the UV range. Here you can see that all these types of insects, they are visiting the different types of flower. I have mentioned that they usually prefer the blue color and yellow color, and not the red color. But the thing is that many of the times when the insect is hungry, it has to prefer the non-preferred color also. When we are very much hungry, we also eat those things which we do not usually like in our day practices. The same thing is there with the insects also. They usually do not prefer red colored flowers, but they have to visit the red colored flowers whenever there is lack of food, which is the food is not available there. Here you can see These are the pollen grains which are probably adhered to the body of the insect, and the whole body of the insect is laden with the pollen grains. So when the same insect visits the next flower, it will accidentally transfer the pollen grain on the receptive stigma. See, none of the insect is visiting the flower for doing pollination. None of the insect thinks that, okay, this plant is giving me good food, this plant is giving me brooding place, this plant is giving me that thing, this plant is giving me nectar, pollen grain, so I should do something for the plant. None of the insects are visiting for doing good things. They are just visiting for the sake of food. And the plants are very intelligent. Though we say that the plants are brainless, but they are very intelligent. They know the habits of every type of pollinator. At what time the pollinator would be active, only at that time the flower will open. So there is a sort of co-evolution which has occurred. Either as per the need of the pollinator, the flower might have modified itself, or as per the need of the pollinator, as per the need of the flower, the pollinator might have adjusted itself. So there is a sort of co-evolution there, which is going on there. Here you can see the water lily is there, and large number of honeybees are coming there. This is Leonotis, and this is a member of family Lamiaceae. Here you can see that when the insects lands here, it's probably pulls a trigger, as a result of which you can see here the pollen grains are adhered to the body. When the same insect visits the next flower, it will automatically land on the flower and it will touch the liver, so that the receptive stigma will now adhere here, will touch to the body of the insect where the pollen grains are adhered, and it will take the pollen grains from there. So the plants knows that what are the habits of the insect. Accordingly, they will attract the insects of that specific type. Now, bumblebees are also there. You can see that large number of bumblebees, they also are visiting for the sake of nectar. But while visiting, they also do the pollination accidentally. Now, this is one of the largest leaf in the plant kingdom. It belongs to a plant called as Victoria amazonica. It is usually found growing in Amazon River and Amazon Basin. But nowadays in India also the plant is grown. I have seen this plant growing in Calcutta Botanical Garden and in the Botanical Garden of Shivaji University, Kolhapur. So this is Victoria amazonica flower. Here you can see that this is the flower which is opening, and here you can see that this is the unpollinated flower and this is the pollinated flower. Now what happens that whenever these lilies, lotus and Victorias, they have got the same type of habit. The flower may remain open for several days, but in the evening the flower closes down. So large number of insects which are there visiting for the sake of food, when they visit the flower in the evening, the whole flower closes. So these insects, they are automatically get trapped in the flower, and when they know that they are trapped, they try to move out. So while doing so, the whole body of the insect is covered with the pollen grains. And when next morning, when the flower opens, the insect flies off, and then he visits another Victoria plant, and again in the evening it is trapped. And while getting out, it will accidentally land on certain areas which are receptive stigma, where already the pollen which is adhered to the body of the insect will be transferred to the receptive stigma. In this way, the pollination is being done by the insects accidentally, because the plants know that these insects are coming for the food. In the evening, we can trap them. They will try to move out. While doing so, their body will be covered with the pollen grain. Next morning, they will be released, and again in the evening, they will be trapped by some other flower where they will transfer the pollen grain. So the habit of the insect is known by the plant. So in this way, they can these insects can unknowingly help the flower in the pollination. Now, beetle are considered to be one of the oldest insects. Beetles are not very good flyers, uh, but they can crawl. And once the habit of the beetle is known, they can crawl, they cannot fly very well. So the flowers, they have modified themselves in such a way that immediately whenever the insect lands on the flower, the shape of the flower is such that it usually lands on the receptive stigma only or on the anthers only. Here you can see that this is a magnolia where the petals are concave, and whenever the insect lands, it usually tumbles down to this portion where the anther and will release the pollen grain which will adhere to the body of the beetle. This you can see here that these are different beetles which are usually visiting the flowers for the sake of pollination. Here you can see that these beetles are visiting the flowers. Again, a longhorn beetle which is visiting a rose member. They are doing the pollination there. Now you can see here that these are the butterflies which are found growing in our areas, and the photographs which we have taken from the campus area only, you can see that these are the different types of butterflies. This plant you know very well. This is Jatropha podagrica, and this is the most commonest flower in our area, which is called as lantana, or in Marathi we call it as ghaneri. Okay, now you might have noticed certain changes in the flower. Now some flowers, they are yellow in color, some flowers they are pink in color, and some flowers they are red in color. The flowers which are unpollinated, they are yellow in color. The flowers which are ready for pollination, they are pink in color, and the flowers which are already pollinated are red in color. So whenever the insect visits the whole inflorescence or a plant, at that time it notices that pink flowers are those flowers in which nectar is present. Red flowers, the color of the pink flower will change from pink to red after the pollination, because after the pollination there is sudden increase in the production of ethylene, and this ethylene ensures that the stigma dries and the flower color changes from pink to red, so that the insect will also notice that the red colored flower of lantana does not have any nectar, so there is no point in visiting this red colored flower. So that is an indication. So the same plant will give you different types of flowers. Yellow is unpollinated, pink is ready for pollination, and red colored flower is pollinated flower. Okay, here also you can see that the butterflies, they are visiting different types of plants. Here you can see that tooth wasp is also there, and a butterfly is pollinating the mint flower. This is a spice bush swallowtail butterfly which is pollinating a Cirsium plant. Here you can see that it is pollinating, and this butterfly is, when it is caught, you can see here, these are the pink colored pollen grains which are probably adhere to the head of the butterfly. Now moths, they are active during the night time, and moths usually prefer white colored flowers or dull colored flowers which have got a musky fragrance. You can see that Ratki Rani is there, Sistrum nocturnum plant is there, or the jasmine's flowers you might have noticed, Jai Jui, Champa Chameli, all these flowers, they are white in color. They open during the night time. Even the Nyctanthus, means Parijatak plant, it has got a very good fragrance. They open during the night time and fall down during the daytime, because their pollinator is active during the night time. And I have shown you purposely a flower which is blue in color. This is a delphinium flower which is blue in color. Now you can see that a flower which is blue in color or dark in color will not be noticed by the moth in the night time. But since the moth is very hungry and there is no other food in the area, it has to search for the plant which it usually never visits, dark colored flower. भूख जो है हमको सारी चीजें जो है भूलने के लिए मजबूर कर देती है कि हमको क्या पसंद है, हमको क्या नहीं पसंद है। जब हमको खाना मिल रहा है, हमारा जो है नाक जो है वो हम नकचड़े बने रहेंगे, हम ये प्रीफर करेंगे कि मुझे ये खाना है, मुझे वो खाना है, मगर जब उनको भूख लगती है, हमको जो भी मिल जाए हम वो चीज खाते हैं। So moths usually prefer the light and dull colored plants. They do not visit the dark colored plants, but when the insect is very hungry, it has to forget everything, that which is the color of the flower, but the only thing, it has to search the food. Now this is a classical photograph where you can see that they are made for each other. This is the pollinator and this is an orchid. You can just measure the length of the spur and the length of the proboscis. They are exactly matching for each other. So they are made for each other. So either as per the need of the flower, the length of the proboscis might have increased, or as per the length of the proboscis, the length of the spur might have increased. So there is a sort of co-evolution. Here you can see that some of the wasps, they are visiting the flowers. This is one orchid called as Angræcum orchid, and it is usually pollinated by the Angræcum moth. Now here you can see that this is the spur, and the position of the nectaries is here. Only that moth which has got the longest spur in the plant kingdom can pollinate this one. No other moth which has got a very small spur will be able to reach here and will be able to pollinate. So only the Angræcum moth can pollinate the Angræcum orchid. And if there is no Angræcum orchid in the area, probably the Angræcum moth will also die for the want of food. So they are dependent on each other for the sake of food and their livelihood. This is one of the largest flower in the plant kingdom, Rafflesia, which I have told you. And here you can see the cameraman has kept the photograph inside the flower so that you can see what is present outside. The jungle in which the forest in which the plant is growing. This is the view of this plant. Now this plant is usually pollinated by flies. You can see here, these are the sticky pollen grains. These are the sticky pollen grains which are there. Now, the flower usually emits the fragrance of a rotten flesh. सड़े हुए मांस की बदबू आती है इसमें से. But I have used the word fragrance because it is the smell of the food. One should say fragrance. So, why the rotten flesh is there? Because the flies, they are probably attracted toward the rotten flesh. They think that it is the food. That's why they go research. And the fragrance of this flower usually spreads in the jungle up to 2 kilometers. Why? Because if one plant is here and next plant may be present 2 kilometers away from this plant, so in order to attract the flies from that distance, the flower has to use its fragrance in order to lure the insects. And this rodent is usually that animal which spreads the seeds of the plant to the other distance. This is one of the largest inflorescence in the plant kingdom. It is one of the stinkiest flower in the plant kingdom, Amorphophallus titanium or Titan arum. It is world's most stinkiest flower. Here you can see that these are the female flowers, these are the male flowers, and this is the fly which is taking the pollen grain from this plant to another plant. And this is the fruit of the Amorphophallus titanium. You can see here. And the orangutans usually consume the fruits, and they probably release the seeds, and they probably disperse the seed to various areas. Now, aroids, some of the aroids may give you very pungent type of smell. They may also give you very different types of smells. There are large number of aroids. We usually get in our area Erythema, Sauromantum, or other members are there, or Amorphophallus are there, which are there. Now here you can see that this is the photograph. This is an aroid which I bought from the Melghat forest. It grew in my house for several years, but every time when it flowered, it started emitting the fragrance which was similar to that of a sewer. So every time I was wondering that from where the smell is coming. So one day I noticed that different types of flies are there, which I have never seen in my entire life. All these flies are attracted. And when I saw that these flies are probably came for this plant, and after the pollination, the fragrance also goes and the flies will also go off. So the plant has to ensure that the smell or the fragrance spread to a large distance so that its pollinator can be attracted. Now here you can see that many of the times the plants do not offer any food to the insect, but they fool them. So here you can see that on the Australian islands, you can see that there are small patches where the seagulls, they lay their eggs, and some of the eggs, when they are hatched, some of the chicks, they die also, and when they die, they emit the fragrance of a rotten flesh. At the same time, this aroid also flowers. It is not offering any food, but the fragrance of this plant is similar to that of the rotten flesh, and that's why you can see here large number of lice are attracted toward this plant, thinking that probably it is the rotten flesh. Here you can see that the flies also, they do pollination. Sometimes ants, they do pollination unknowingly. They are not very good pollinators, but they visit the flowers for the sake of sugary syrup, and while visiting, they do pollination unknowingly. There are small insects, thrisps, where very small insects are there. Here you can see that this is a thrisp, and this is enlarged view of the thrisp. You can see here the thrisp will enter through a narrow opening and do the pollination in this plant. Many of the times, large number of insects, they come, and when the insects are in large number, automatically their predators also come. So this is a photograph of a gecko in Australian island. You can see here the gecko also consumes some of the insects, and it also likes the nectar. Sweet nectar is there. So you can see the mouth of the gecko is covered with the pollen grain. Proteus is the national flower of South Africa. The Banksias and Proteas, which are the members of family Proteaceae, they are usually pollinated by small mammals, especially the possums are there, which usually pollinate them. And this type of pollination is called as zoophily. Here you can see that these are the honey possums, which visit the flowers during the night time. This is Eugenia plant. Here you can see Myrtus plant. Some of the orchids are also pollinated by mouse. And this is one of the largest pollinator in the plant kingdom. It is white-breasted lemur. I will repeat, this is white-breasted lemur. It is the largest pollinator in the plant kingdom, and it pollinates a plant called as traveler's palm or Ravenella madagascarensis. Why? Because the bracts of these flowers are so tight, they are so huge, they cannot be opened by any other pollinator. Only the males of the white-breasted lemur can remove these bracts, and they can do the pollination here. Now, the flowers which are red in color, orange in color, they are usually pollinated by birds. And if you see that these flowers are almost non-fragrant, without any fragrance, without any smell. Here you can see whether it is Bombaxiba or our Purus or Spathodia or even Hamellias, they are pollinated by birds and they are non-fragrant. This is bird of paradise, Sterlitzia plant. It is pollinated by birds. Here you can see the flowers which are pollinated by birds, they are often bright red. The flowers are non-fragrant and they grow in large inflorescences. And they have got large floral tubes, and they have got copious nectar. Nectar is present in huge quantity so that it can attract large number of birds. These are hummingbirds which are pollinating. Hummingbirds can pollinate or can consume the nectar while flying. Unfortunately, in India, hummingbirds are not present. The reason is that we don't have that much quantity of plants in our area which can sustain the population of hummingbirds. Instead, we have got sunbirds. We do not have hummingbirds, but these are the hummingbirds which are pollinating. These are also hummingbirds, different species of hummingbirds which are pollinating. And these are sunbirds. They are very common in our area. Some birds are there. They are very small. These are the sunbirds which are comparatively larger, but they are not present in our area. Many of the times, the snails, they do pollinate unknowingly, because nowadays this is the season when maximum snails are active. The snails, they usually move from the ground, and so some of the flowers which are opening their flowers on the ground are pollinated unknowingly by the snails. And the type of pollination is called as malacophily. Here you can see that this is the snail which is doing the pollination. Now, the moon signifies that night is there. There are certain creatures which are active during the night time, and they do pollinate the flowers which are open during the night time, especially the cacti, the bombax, or the Adansonias, or the other member of family Bombaceae are there, which open their flower during the night time. Now the cacti are producing the most beautiful flowers, but unfortunately we are not able to see the flowers because the flowers of the cacti, they open during the night time when we are asleep. So we usually do not notice the flowers, but these flowers, they attract a large number of bats. Here you can see that this is the flower which is visible to us, and this is the same flower which is visible to its pollinator, the bat. Here you can see that the bats, they are attracted towards these plants, especially the cacti plants, due to the pollen grains and the nectar, which is a source of food for them. Here you can see this is agave plant. It is very common in our area also. It is usually pollinated by bats. Now, many of the times, as I told you in the early part of my lecture, that there are certain plants which are called as monocarpic. It means that they will flower once in their lifetime. So if the flowering is there, which is not followed by fertilization, there is no chance of seed set then. So plant has to ensure there should be some plan B. If the pollination fails, then there should have some optional mechanism for them. So in our area, we will find that mostly the Furcreyas and agave plant, they have developed a bulbils, which is a vegetatively propagative organ. And if the pollination fails, there is no seed set, the plant will produce vegetative by vegetative method with the help of bulbil. And many of the people, they think that it is vivipary, that the seed is germinating on the plant itself. It is not at all a vivipary, but it is a bulbil. The plant has opted for vegetative mechanism because the fertilization has not turned or not developed the seeds there. Here you can see that some of the bats, they are pollen. This is the flower of the baobab. This is very common in our area. Gorakhchins, what we say, or baobab or Adansonia plant. This is Adansonia plant. Again, the Kigelia plant. I sometimes feel that how come the Kigelia plant is pollinated? Because the color of the Kigelia plant is purple or brown in color, which is usually not visible to the bat during the night time. But still, why the Kigelia plant has opted for bat pollination, and that is a thing which is very unusual. Even the wild bananas, they are pollinated by, even the bananas and wild bananas, they are pollinated by bats. Many of the times we know that the insects, they do not get any reward from the plant, and sometimes the plants cheat the insect, and sometimes the insects cheat the plant. Now there are certain insects which have got a very small proboscis, but the flowers to which they visit, they have got a very long floral tube or corolla tube, and that's why the nectar is out of reach from these insects. So what they do, they probably try to take away the nectar from other position. So here you can see that the insect is piercing its proboscis and cheating the plants. It is not pollinating, but it is taking the nectar from that locality. Here you can see that these are the areas from where the nectar has been taken away by the insect. These are the areas. Magnified view is there. Okay. Now many of the times we usually say that there are highly specialized type of pollination. There are three classical examples. What you can say that there is highly specialized type of pollination. One is the orchid and orchid wasp pollination. Second one is fig and fig wasp pollination, and third one is yucca and yucca moth pollination. The thing is that if these are highly specialized. Why they are highly specialized? Because if the orchid is not present, then the life cycle of wasp will not be completed. If the fig is not there, then the life cycle of fig will not be completed. If the yucca plant is not there, then the life cycle of yakka moth will not be completed. So both the plant and pollinator, they are interdependent on each other for the completion of their respective life cycles. Okay, now we know that orchids, they have got different types of colors. They are one of the most beautiful flowers and one of the largest members of flowering plants. Almost 35,000 species of orchids are there, and all of them are pollinated by different types of pollinators. And in order to attract that pollinator, the orchid plants, they have modified themselves in such a way that only a specific type of pollinator will visit, otherwise the plant will not go for pollination. Now here you can see that there are 6 petals or perianth members, what we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of which 3 are sepals and 3 are petals, and this is the floral axis, you can see. Once you remove, this is the anther cap, which cannot be removed on its own by the plant. So once the insect removes the anther cap, then only the 2 pollen grains or a group of pollinia are visible. This is the sticky stigma. So even this pollinia attaches here, the seed set will be there. But in order to avoid self-fertilization, a pollen cap is there, so that always the plant is favoring for cross-pollination. Okay. Now, many of the times, the insects are not getting any reward, but they are fooled by the plants. And this is usually done in case of wasps. Now here you can see that this is the Ophrys plant, which is usually pollinated by the wasps. Now, in case of certain wasps, the copulation or mating is mid-air. During the mating season, prior to emergence of female, the male will come out. At least 10 days earlier, they come out, they search the area, and after 10 days, the female comes out. And once the female chooses the male takes the female, and there is a mid-air mating or mid-air copulation. Now, at the same time, the Ophrys flowers are in flowering. The Ophrys flower, they adjust the timing of the flowering in such a way that when the male wasps are coming, at that time the Ophrys flowers will flower. Because male wasps usually come 10 days before the female wasp. So during these 10 days, the orchid plants or the Ophrys plants, they try their luck by fooling these wasps plant. So what they do, they have modified their shapes in such a way that the male think that it is their female. And since the flowers are born on the plant, they think that it is the female which is flying. So they try to do what is called as pseudo copulation or mid-air copulation. And while doing so, they transfer the pollen grain accidentally. Here you can see that this is the Ophrys flower, which is almost similar to that of the female. And this is the male wasp which is trying to copulate with the female, but it is not copulating, it is actually transferring the pollinia or the anther. Okay, here you can see. This is the female Ophrys flower, this is the wasp, and it is transferring the pollination pollen grain there. Now there is another type of wasp which is usually found in Western Australia, and there is one orchid called as Drachia. And in this wasp, the female is wingless and the male is winged. Usually during the mating season, the female climbs on the plant and the male picks the female from the plant, and the copulation is mid-air. So the same thing is opted by the plant. They have modified themselves in such a way that the flowers of this plant, Drachia, resembles to that of the wingless female. Here you can see that this is a wingless wasp and this is the flower, which is not exactly similar, but it is resembling to that of the female plant. So when the male wasp comes, it may pick this or it may pick this. If it picks this one, then the pollination of orchid is done. If it picks this wasp, then the egg laying is there, fertilization will take place. Here you can see here. This is this Drachia flower, and this is the male wasp, which is winged wasp, and it is trying to take the female. But while doing so, it will transfer the pollen grains accidentally. Now, some of the orchids, they have modified themselves in such a way that their shape resembles to that of the females of certain wasps. Here you can see that this wasp looks like this is some in some orchids wasps the hairy females are there. Here you can see that. So they are probably fooling these insects, and while doing so, they will accidentally do the pollination there. Now this is one cartoon I have shown you that the snail thinks that it is the female, and so it is saying that I don't care if she's a tape disease. So in case of appearance, the exactness is not important. It is important that looking alike is important. One should not look exactly that of like a female. And so majority of the flowering plants, they are fooling the insects by similar appearance. No exact appearance is there, but they are fooling the male insects by their appearance. Now these are some orchids which probably provide a brooding place. This is called as a Motel 6 syndrome because in certain orchids you will find that these orchids they close during the night time. So many of the insects when they search a safe place in the night time, they go inside the flowers so that they are probably protected, prevented from being eaten from their predators. So when they visit there, the flower closes, they are safe there. But once they know that they are now closed in the flower, they try to move here and there. And while doing so, the pollen grains of the plant are covered on their body. And next morning they will move. And again in this evening, they will land on some other flower where they will be closed again. So they will accidentally transfer. So this is a Motel 6 syndrome, which is developed by certain orchids. In certain orchids, you will find that the lip mechanism is there. For example, there is one orchid called as Poroglossum eodori. So here you can see that this is the lip close and this is the open. Once the insect opens, the lip closes and then the insect is trapped. Again, the flower will open, then the insect will be released, but it is released only after the pollinia is stuck to the body of the insect. Now, many of the the orchids do not offer anything. Here you can see that this orchid called as Dracula chesteroni, which is resembling to that of an mushroom. Here you can see that it resembles to that of a mushroom because on mushroom, large number of insects, large number of flies, large number of flies are attracted to suck the nutrition from the mushroom. Here you can see that these are probably thinking that it is the mushroom, but it is not at all a mushroom, but the plant has probably attracted all these insects so that they will favor for pollination. In certain plants where you can find that this is one plant, Cypripedium, where a purse-like appearance is there in which some nectar is present. Once the insect enters here, it drinks the nectar, it gets intoxicated and it gets a dizziness feeling. Now it cannot climb up from this, and there is a small passage, narrow passage through which it can come out. So when it comes out through a narrow passage, there you will find out that the position of the anther is there. The passage is so small, without taking away the pollen grain or the pollinia, the insect cannot escape. Here you can see that these are the two pollinia which are stuck to the backside of the insect. Here. There is another classical example, fig. Fig means in India we get so many types of figs. We all know that pimpad, umber, word, katumbar, bhuyumbar, anjeer, all these are figs. So here the pollination is done by a wasp. Now here you can see that the female wasp is going inside. Once the female wasp is entering the inflorescence, there you will find that since it is entering into the inflorescence, it knows that it is going to die. But the female wasp has to sacrifice its life for the sake of next generation. It has to ensure that if I enter here, I will die. But if I do not enter here, where I will get a place to lay my eggs. Why? Because once the female wasp enters here, it will pollinate some of the flowers. Why it will pollinate some of the flowers? purposefully because it will lay the eggs inside the fruit. If the pollination is not there, the fruits will not develop, the seeds will not develop. So the eggs which are laid by the wasp, after the hatching of the eggs, when the larvae will come out, the larvae will not get enough food. So in order to ensure food for its next generation, wasp has to pollinate some of the flowers. So the female wasp, once it enters inside the inflorescence, it knows that it is going to die, but for the sake of next generation, it has to sacrifice its own life. So it will enter inside, it will go inside, and once it goes inside, it will pollinate large number of flowers because once the eggs are hatched, all the larvae will come out and the larvae will get ample quantity of food in it. So whenever we are eating the anjeers and figs, when you open, you will find that small insects are there. These are nothing but these are the insects which have probably developed inside the fruit from the eggs which are laid by the sacrificing mother. Here you can see. Okay. Now, when we open out, you can see here this is the female wasp, and here other insects they are developing there. There is one plant called as yucca, and this is a yucca moth. So if there is no yucca moth, the life cycle of yucca plant will not be completed. If there is no yucca plant, the life cycle of the yucca moth will not be completed. So both of these, they are interdependent on each other for the completion of their respective life cycles. So here you can see that this is the anthers which are visible to the yucca moth. Here you can see the yucca moth visits and it is purposefully pollinating and laying the eggs. Why it is laying the eggs? Because it has to ensure the food for the next generation. Once the flower will be pollinated, the flower will be converted to fruit. Inside the fruit, there will be food, there will be seeds, which will be eaten by the larvae of the yucca moth. So the yucca moth ensures that it is pollinating as well as laying the eggs. Here you can see that the yucca moth is purposefully pollinating the plant so that the next generation will get the food, and it is also laying the eggs here. Why it is laying the eggs here? Because the fruit of the yucca plant is so hard. It is so hard, unless and until it is bored out from the inside, the seeds will never be released because it is beneficial for both the moth as well as for the plant. Because if the pollination is there, then the seed set will be there. See, some of the seeds will be consumed by the larvae, but not all the seeds will be consumed by the larvae. And if not, if the larvae do not develop there, the fruit will be formed, the seeds will be formed, but the seeds will never be released. So unless and until some of the larvae they eat and come out from the fruit, they will now open the fruit in such a way that now the fruit will be able to release its seeds to the other areas. So in this way, both of them, they are interdependent on each other. So thank you very much from my side as well as from all these pollinators whose success stories you will listening till now. If you have got any queries, any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Participants, अगर आपको कुछ questions होंगे, you can ask to the sir. Sir, very wonderful presentation.
हेलो
Thank you, madam.
हाँ सर बोलिए.
हेलो
हाँ हाँ.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर.
Good morning, उत्पल.
संजय बोलता है
हाँ
मिश्रा.
बोल संजय.
सर एक जैसे अभी हमने पॉलिनेशन वगैरह का इसमें थोड़ा सा डिस्कस किया है, देखा है बहुत सुंदर फ्लावर्स, पोलन्स, सब डिफरेंट टाइप्स के कलर वगैरह सब. सर एक क्वेश्चन मेरा पर्सनल है और मुझे बहुत थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट भी जा रहा है सर्च करने के लिए. जैसे 9.8 ग्रेविटी अर्थ की, तो इस ग्रेविटी का इफेक्ट पोलन ग्रेन के शेप पे होता है क्या? बहुत मैंने
इतना डिटेल में पॉलिनेशन बायोलॉजी में, पैलिनोलॉजी का मेरा एकदम नहीं के बराबर है. पॉलिनेशन बायोलॉजी में काम किया पर पोलन ग्रेन्स के ऊपर में इतना ज्यादा ये नहीं किया है. इस पे भी मैंने भी कुछ ये नहीं है. हाँ.
ओके सर, थैंक यू.
Anyone else?
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Thank you for the very informative lecture. Sir, I have one question.
बोलिए मैडम.
The pollination done by human being, what is it known as?
It is zoophily and artificial pollination.
Only within the mammal group only. It
Yeah,
would be only.
all the mammals, rest of the mammals, it is considered as zoophily.
Okay.
And
Nothing else.
if we are doing if we are doing pollination, we are doing for a purpose.
Okay, that is artificial one.
Yeah, then that is artificial pollination.
So sometimes unintentionally people also do the pollination, like if
No,
we are going
no.
to a field and
Yeah.
the pollen
Yes.
grains may stick to our dresses and all, and we visit another place and we may pollinate it in
Yeah,
some.
in that case, we can call it as zoophily.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, some insects are generally pollinating or tearing on the flowers, where the length of corolla is more probably.
Yeah.
Hello.
हाँ,
sir.
बोलन.
So this activity is, yes. So this activity is called as a phenotypic plasticity, where the length of proboscis and corolla petals particularly.
See, when they are matching, it's okay, but otherwise we can call it as phenotypic plasticity. Phenotypic plasticity means variation within means morphological variations are there.
Okay. You are saying that this is just a co-evolution.
Only a specific pollinator. See, the plant are favoring for say for example, if honeybees are there.
Okay.
Majority of the plants are pollinating honeybees, then the flower shape will be such that the flower will be only of that shape, so that the honeybee can take the pollen grain as well as nectar comfortably.
Okay.
So that's why the flower might have modified itself as per the need of the honeybee. It has not modified itself as per the need of a butterfly or some wasp or some other. It may, see,
Yes.
large number of visitors, see, there is a difference between a visitor and a pollinator.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So large number of insects may visit for food, but only that insect which is pollinating will be considered as a pollinator, because the plant has already chosen its pollinator. Because if the specific pollinator will know that at what time the nectar is available, at what time the pollen are available. Others are visiting only for the sake of, अरे खाना बना है कि नहीं बना है इसके लिए पहले. हम अगर मेस में खाना खाने जाते हैं रेगुलरली, तो हम उसी वक्त पे जाएंगे जब खाना तैयार रहेगा. जो रेगुलर विजिटर नहीं रहेंगे वो अलग अलग वक्त पे आएंगे.
Okay, sir. ठीक है.
Okay.
Sir, hello.
Hello.
Sir, what do you think that the evolution mainly because of the mutations in the organisms, and what do you think that, sir, the animals, the insects are mutated and adapt them for the pollination, or the plants, flowers are adapted, sir?
See, the flowers have modified themselves in order so that a specific type of pollinator or a specific type of insect may visit.
But sir, what do you think that mainly the mutation is the big reason for the morphological, anatomical?
See, mutation is one of the reason for evolution also. Mutation is also reason for development of different species also.
So a specific plant is mutated for a specific insect, sir?
Not mutated. It has modified itself in such a way. Yeah.
Without genetic modification, genetic alteration, the morphological characters, I think, cannot be adapted.
Yeah, it can be, but there are very few species, especially orchids are only those species where a specific pollinator is required. Otherwise, you will find that on lantana plant, the honeybees are also visiting, even the sunbirds are also visiting, even the butterflies are also visiting. So they are not very specific regarding their pollinator.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, sir. Sir, pollen grains are allergic. So, are each and every pollen grains which are existing in nature are allergic, or some kind of pollen grains are there which
See,
are allergic? What
see,
kind of because I don't know anything. Just ask.
the allergy will vary from person to person. I may be allergic to certain things, but my friend will not be allergic. So because it depends upon the makeup of the person also. Yes, there are certain pollen grains which are allergic, no doubt, because the spiny outgrowth is there, which can cause allergy.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning,
Hello.
sir. I have a question
Yes.
regarding the phylogenetic evolution. As we
Yeah.
consider that we are having retrogressive evolution in Asteraceae family and Amentiferae family,
Yeah.
and as we have discussed today, that we are having the orchids,
Yeah.
which are showing the progressive evolution. Isn't
Yes.
that controversial statement that orchids has modified their flower structures for the particular insect?
Yes. Yes.
So is it not controversial that we
Yes,
are
madam.
saying?
Yes. 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 It is also controversial because there are certain orchids which are on the verge of extinction due to non-availability of the insect.
Yeah. So
Because they,
that is
yeah, because see, they have evolved in over millions of years. Now suddenly we have started changing the habitat in last 1000, 2000 years. So now the plants which are already evolved, they
yeah.
cannot change or they cannot evolve in a small span of 1000 years.
So that
So,
means these specific orchids are primitive orchids.
yeah, we cannot say that they are primitive orchids. They are advanced because they have opted for a specific pollinator. See, when we say primitive means the members of family Magnoliaceae. They are why they have opted for beetle, because beetle are the most primitive insect.
Yeah.
Magnolias are also one of the most primitive family. So at that time, you
Yes.
will find that only beetles were there, so they have opted themselves. Now, every plant, I can also say that if there are 35,000 types of orchids, there can be 35,000 types of different specific pollinators.
Okay.
Due to over specializations, orchids are on the verge of extinction. Now, why do we see so many orchids? Because we are now entered into floriculture industries, and you can see here not only those plants which are commercially available, they are also pollinated by human beings. We do pollinate artificially the orchids, because whenever I bring the orchids to my place, I don't bring the pollinator. So I have to do artificial pollination in order to ensure the fertilization takes place or seed set takes place.
Yes.
Over specialization has probably led to the decline in the population of orchids also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your
Thank you.
wonderful session and very informative session. And for on behalf of all the participants and from on behalf of UGC HRSA Nagpur, I extend my hearty thanks to Dr. Dongarwar sir for accepting our invitation and delivery of your lecture. Thank you, sir.
थँक्यू मॅडम. थँक्यू
Thank.
मॅडम. एक फक्त विचारायचं होतं,
हां.
मध्ये कुठे लिंक तर तुटलेली नाही ना?
नाही सर, कंटिन्यू व्यवस्थित होतं सर.
ओके, ओके. थँक्यू मॅडम.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
हां.
Friends, now you can take a break of 10 minutes. We will start our session at 12:30. मी ही मीटिंग एकदा रिकॉर्ड करते, सध्या एंड करते मैं मीटिंग. आप लोग 10 मिनट के बाद फिर से ज्वाइन करिए. 12:30 बजे अपन नेक्स्ट सेशन चालू करेंगे. फाइन?
ओके.
ओके.